The famed philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche said, "All philosophies fall, forfeit to history." All philosophies fall, forfeit to history. I'm going to come back to that statement and what that might mean here in a minute, but I want to say welcome to the T&G webcast. Hi, Alex McFarland here. So glad you're watching. Really appreciate your time. Wow. Since we started these webcasts just about 2 months ago, my goodness, it seems like every day the news is continually filled with change and upheaval. And our nation continues to mourn the tragic death of George Floyd. But my goodness, I'm sure like myself, you've just been heartbroken, concerned, maybe a little even fearful to watch the upheaval, the rioting, the looting, the chaos that seems to be going on in the streets of America, the desecration of monuments and statues. I mean, entire police precincts being taken over, commandeered by crowds of people, as if the slash and burn anarchy that we've been watching for the last 3 weeks is somehow going to assuage or compensate for the death of an individual. There's so much we could say, but I want to say this. Whether you believe that this is just happenstance or the outflow of the tides of culture and human reaction to tragedy unforeseen, or whether you believe this is a concerted effort to overthrow the U.S. government, which it might be, that is not my point right now. What I want to talk about are 5 cultural, social trends that are undeniable. The origin of these is a bit speculative. Is it accidental or intentional? That's not the point right now. What I want to talk about, though, are 5 undeniable trends going on in our culture that, if not acknowledged, understood, and reined in, really threaten our Constitution and our liberties. Let me give these. I want to explain a little bit what's going on. 5 trends: social disorder, revised history, leveraged language, controlled news, and also class division. Okay, let's talk about these social disorder. I mean, AOC is calling for the abolition of police departments. I mean, can you believe that? I'm very thankful that great public intellectuals like Thomas Sowell and Ben Shapiro and others, black and white, are saying that this is just crazy, this is insane. Can you imagine the abolition of law enforcement in America? You know, one of the geniuses of the American founders, like Alexander Hamilton, was that they understood human nature. And we've got this survival instinct, and we've got also a sin problem. And so we have to have boundaries, moral, ethical boundaries, checks and balances. And yes, we need law enforcement. We need national defense from threats without, and we need internal order from problems within, because we can't have just this utopia with no boundaries or no law enforcement. And so the social disorder and those that are promoting social disorder are really undermining our Constitution. We've got revised history. My goodness, in Florida, Minnesota, Ohio, Pennsylvania, around the country, they're tearing the heads off statues, desecrating monuments. Even monuments to black leaders are being destroyed by black rioters. The head of Christopher Columbus is being taken off of statues. And you know what? Having spoken at more than 200 American universities and dozens of public schools, this hatred of America, this denigration of anything European, anything of our history, it is the result of decades of public education where young people have been really coached and groomed, and I would say indoctrinated, to hate history. All history is bad. All of America is negative. And there's this historical revisionism that threatens our country. Most recently, HBO, to make the world right, is pulling from their library of content the movie Gone with the Wind. Now, the subject matter of Gone with the Wind is another story for another day. But do you know, actually, the filming of Gone with the Wind, besides being an incredible cinematic triumph for American cinematography, there's actually some great civil rights outflow that came from the awards garnered by Gone with the Wind. I want us to watch a film clip of the acceptance speech by Hattie McDaniel when she won an Academy Award for her portrayal of Mammy in Gone with the Wind. Regardless of what you think about the content, watch the speech given as she was the first African American to receive an Academy Award.
Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Science, fellow members of the motion picture industry, and honored guests. This is one of the happiest moments of my life, and I want to thank each one of you who had a part in selecting me for one of the awards. For your kindness, it has made me feel very, very humble, and I shall always hold it as a beacon for anything that I may be able to do in the future. I sincerely hope I shall always be a credit to my race and to the motion picture industry. My heart is too full to tell you just how I feel, and may I say thank you, and God bless you.
Now, a little bit of backstory. It's very sad. It's hard to even say. But during the filming of Gone with the Wind, this incredible actress who won an Academy Award, she was sequestered from the rest of the cast, even though it was well known that Clark Gable, who played Rhett Butler, loved her, and Vivian Leigh, and there was a great fraternal collegiality among the cast members. But she, as a black actress, was sequestered away. Even during the Academy Award ceremony where she was given that great award, she wasn't allowed to sit with the other actors and actresses because she was black. That's very sad. But did you notice, were you struck by how gracious her speech was and how full of emotion? And she said, "Thank you and God bless you." Not a slash and burn reaction at all. But we're seeing revised history, leverage language. Even as I filmed this, the leader of the largest Protestant denomination in America, J.D. Greear, president of the Southern Baptist Convention, he's calling on all Southern Baptist members to say, now repeat after me, Black Lives Matter. And he's calling on Southern Baptist members to denounce the phrase, all lives matter. Really? Now, obviously, black lives do matter. In church, we're taught to sing red and yellow, black and white. They are precious in his sight. I want to say all human lives, males and females of all ethnicities, are precious. Lives are precious. Yes, black lives matter, but all lives matter. And so language is being leveraged as people in positions of leadership that really ought to have the moral courage to know better, like J.D. Greear, who's a PC panderer, at least if we evaluate by his last year of statements. Look, language is being leveraged. How can it be that Miss or Mrs. or Mr. or he or she is hate speech? It's reality. To say God bless America is hate speech. Language is being leveraged. We're living in a time of controlled news and spin rather than truth. Viewpoint discrimination, and I would say CNN and the New York Times are among the worst offenders. And we're living in a time of really class division. Class division. In so many ways, America of 2020 looks like Germany of the 1930s, as Hitler's heinous schemes were being enforced. By the way, it's really a bit of historical irony how the greatest increase in Jewish population in all of Europe is taking place right now in Berlin. But Hitler came to power by class division and class envy. And we're seeing that card played by leaders today. It's dangerous. Now we're going to take a break, and I'm going to come back to Nietzsche's supposition that all philosophies fall forfeit to history. I'm going to come back to that, but right now let me change gears. I want to answer a question, and I want to give away a book. One writer emailed me this week and said, how can Christians speak about political issues? And should ministers speak about political issues? Because after all, isn't the Bible about salvation and heaven? Thank you for that great question. It's always been a little bit of a tension. But I've shared this statistic, and it's a statistic only of about a year ago, so I think it's still pretty relevant. But the Barna Research Group, highly respected, said that 74% of all parishioners want their clergy to speak about moral issues, social current events through a biblical lens. But yet only about 12% of pastors do. Believe it or not, the Bible is a very political book. Now, I know it's about God and salvation, but the Bible talks about morality, behavior, responsibility, consequences for behavior. The Bible talks about just laws, morally sufficient laws, and laws that are unjust. And so, frankly, I would argue that part of the social disorder and upheaval that we're seeing right now is because many ministers and clergy have not courageously from their pulpits talked about what saith the Lord. You know, just as God thundered from Mount Sinai and Moses was the great lawgiver. I mean, clergy and spiritual leaders must tell their congregants what saith the Lord. I mean, we're not called to say necessarily what people always want to hear, but what people need to hear. And I'm going to talk more about that in a future program. But I do want to ask you to share this publicly. Please, via your social media platform, share. And if you share publicly, you're automatically entered to win a book. We give away a book every Friday. Now, this week, we're giving away the book, 10 Issues That Divide Christians. And our winner this week from Belton, Texas, is somebody who watches, and I appreciate it so much, Raquel Ghana. Raquel, thanks for watching. Thanks for forwarding. You are going to be getting this book right here, 10 Issues That Divide Christians, a lot of political issues and social issues from a biblical perspective. Please share. The next book we're going to give away, because we have many books, is called Stand Strong America. I wrote it with my beloved friend and colleague, Jason Jimenez. We talk about a lot of issues that, while this book is pretty cerebral, this book is pretty inspiring, we believe, about God and country, truth, morality, your kids, your family, and how we can all be better citizens. Share publicly, like us on your social media platforms, please, and we will put your name in the running to win books and to get books. Now, the bottom line, folks, what am I saying? Look, there are all kinds of philosophies. Nietzsche was talking about philosophies and worldview, and liberal progressivism, going all the way back really to the 19th century, and to even people that truly were racist, like Margaret Sanger, and then progressive leaders like Dewey and even Woodrow Wilson. They had this idea that we would create a utopia, a nation without borders, communities without law enforcement, and just this utopia of angels on earth. But look, after decades of revisionist history and self-esteem rather than truth, and self-expression unlimited, I've got to ask, as our cities are burning, how's that working for you? Look, the founders understood, and it goes back through all the civilized societies throughout history. Man is precious. All lives matter. But we need moral boundaries. And when those boundaries are erased, things get chaotic pretty quickly. God bless you. Stand for truth. Say your prayers. May God bless you, and may God bless America.